I'm resident of Colorwood for YouTube. Joel Saints. It's buddy Gordon Dymowski. It's buddy Patrick McCray. It's buddy Alan Gallant. We're here to review the Avengers, season 4, episode 25. How to succeed at death. At murder. So there's been 11 people killed here by these women, but nobody knows who's doing it anyway. You have a ventriloquist, a lot of stuff going on in here, which I really like the ventriloquist angle they play here. Really smart. So, guys, when did you first see this episode? I know when I first saw this one. It wasn't today.
It was today for me. This is one that had eluded me before. It's a really kind of it's a psycho villain episode. It's definitely in that genre with the ventriloquist dummy and all this sort of weird stuff going on. There's misandry involved in the whole thing, and a twist at the end. So it's definitely vintage Avengers.
Yeah. Gordon?
I first saw this episode when it was run on A&E in the 90s, and it's one of those episodes that it is kind of its time, because it's, women are secretaries, and the idea of women being, leading businesses, whoa, no, that doesn't happen. But it's also timely in the sense that I've been to entrepreneur groups, and I've had business coaches who want to work with me. And usually what that means is they want to turn me into one of their, another business coach, which I know some business coaches who know what they're doing, but a lot of them don't. But I think it's typical. It's got that Avengers flair of it's slightly satirical, but at the same time, it's very knowing. And the other cool things about it is that there's a couple of actors who, I've seen in other things. So I forget his name, but the actor who played Rudge, the accountant, was also he played the henchman of the computer in Doctor Who: The Green Death, which all of you can watch on Tubi. The woman who played the blonde, I forget her name. She was actually in The Prisoner. And then I'm just going to cut straight to Jules. What's my favorite scene? The one with J.T. Hooter, played by Christopher Benjamin, who is.
I love J.T. Hooter, and Benjamin was a delight.
And the funny thing is, Benjamin he passed away about a year or so ago, and he has an extensive. He has a career playing two types. He plays either serious, serious like government bureaucratic types, or like just big buffoony, cartoony dudes. So like he was in The Prisoner twice, because he was in Arrival and the Woman Who Was Death. In Doctor Who, he was in Inferno, which is a Third Doctor story. He was in Talent of Wang Chiang, where he plays this grand theatrical. He's a great Henry Gordon Jago, that's proprietor of it. He's basically if you took Patrick's personality and put it on a 19th century showman, just that grand eloquence. And in the new series, he was in a story called The Unicorn and the Wasp, which is a riff on Agatha Christie. But there's this great mix of it's got that kind of satirical slightly satirical knowing style that the Avengers had. It's got a really clever plot, especially for the time. And I think it just has a charm and a sparkle that I don't, and I hate to sound like the old fogey in this group, but you don't really see that in a lot of modern shows. It's usually more just like jokey jokes, and there's no wit. But this is a really good episode.
Also all of the characters are really they're drawn in contrast to one another in terms of personalities and psychology and all of that. The guy that played Rogers, Jerome Willis, was his name.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, this you're right about the satire. I mean, there's a fight that takes place where Peel drop kicks rag dolls around the room. I mean, it's because all these women are attacking her at one point in the dance studio, and she just I'm all right, Peel. You go take care of so and so. And she's and all of a sudden, women are just flying off of her like rag dolls.
But it's also hilarious. It's also, though, I think a very, given British television standards at the time and American standards, which were maybe a little bit looser, but not by much. I mean, that's the only way you could play that, because you've got. With most primetime series, it's most fist fights are one punch, or if you're watching the Wild Wild West, it's a very elaborate, very staged
choreographed. Yeah.
But here it's nice because you know that it's that it is coming close to being over the top, but not quite. But you also know that there's an intelligence behind it. It's not just oh hey let's be brutal, or even let's not do anything. I think it's the violence I think is at the appropriate level.
Yeah, and even that scene, which is sort of on one level it's kind of a gag, is not cut right because it's intentionally that way. I mean, it's pretty clear that they intended for it to be a little on the surreal side.
I mean, and it advances the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Diana,
well, I mean that whole environment is surreal anyway. The lair of the villain, it's all very surreal.
Yeah, Diana Rigg's character basically turns into King Kong. They have this same analogy in wrestling when one wrestler basically dominates a bunch of others at one time. That wrestler is basically the equivalent of King Kong, and they clear the ring. She's clearing the people off of her, which is really nice to see.
So therefore, the ventriloquist dummy Henrietta would be the wrestling equivalent of Hornswoggle with a mind, right?
That's worthy observation, Alan. Yeah.
It's more. I would say that the ventriloquist is more like the promoter almost, because you don't necessarily see or know who's really behind the doll till the end.
Right. That's
to
correct.
A degree. That, or better yet, even more so, if you don't want to do the promoter route, like a manager who you don't know is managing the people. But I would go more the promoter route because, again, I like the ventriloquist act because you do see the curtain move, and it's like, okay, who's behind the curtain? And then basically, it's to me, it's to deceive the audience.
It is. It's seeing the curtain move is a red herring.
Yeah.
Because, and spoiler alert for those of you who have not seen this episode, the duo of Henry, who is the living, breathing man, and Henrietta, who is the ventriloquist dummy, is actually one and the same person. The ventriloquist dummy personifies his dead wife, and this and through Henrietta, the personality of Henrietta, who created this league of misandry among these women that are running around killing influential and potentially abusive men who are businessmen.
It's the same old story.
Yeah, it's the
same old story. We've seen a million times.
Yes. Anyway, that's the big twist at the end, that you discover that Henry, in fact, is also Henrietta.
Yeah.
And it's a nice twist. It's a really nice twist, I think, in terms of the way it's set up in this particular episode, because the whole episode, you're kind of immersed in, these women with the bracelets that always get to kill these men. And they're they're becoming the indispensable secretaries that take over the businesses after they dispatch the men and so on. So it's interesting. And then the motivation that Henry has is that he hates these men too. He's kind of misandrous because he
So much of writing is about euphemism. And I will say I have had more than one honeymoon that I have tried to write off with the words, well, it had a nice twist ending.
Yeah. Especially if it was a deliberate twist.
Yeah, and I think that the nice thing about this episode is what they don't do. I don't think they play Henry as, in a scenario like this, it would be tempting to play Henry as maybe kind of delusional or like somehow part of his personality. You really get the sense that he's like, that he really isn't, he's manipulative, but it's like, okay, this is how I can get other people to do my dirty work.
Yeah, he has this sort of other persona as this sort of subservient to the puppet. He's subservient to the woman. I say that in quotes. Although when he's with the other women in the dance studio, he's very much in charge, which is interesting. But not in front of Henrietta. He's very much,
and to kind of use some hip teen lingo. I don't mean to kink shame, but the guy likes getting choked with jump ropes.
Yeah, he does. Seriously, it happens. Yeah, it's like he's the volunteer. Let's show us how you can kill a man. It's like, do it to me.
Okay, so Lincoln, what do you think?
I wish I could get him to make. He makes these sounds that are like the homunculi in Jason and the Argonauts. It's really bad. They're just really bizarre, but I can't. I said, that's a sweet song. Now he's playing for the audience. He never does this stuff. He ignores me when the camera's not on. It's just it's depressing.
Yeah. He senses that there's a spot for him out there in the great beyond. So he's going for it.
Look at him. Ham.
Well, Patrick, maybe he's trying to be your Ed McMahon.
Christ. He's trying to do what to who where?
He's trying to be your Ed McMahon.
I thought I heard a really soft yes in the background.
Hello.
Hello.
I do have a question for Gordon here. Do you think the Avengers are sort of maybe inspired? I don't know if they're doing it, if DC's doing this with Batman by this time, are inspired by sort of the Scarface ventriloquist thing?
I think if you're talking about the Batman villain, he came way after.
Oh, okay.
There are two kind of horror precedents. There are two kind of precedents that lead up to, the idea of a ventriloquist dummy developing a personality. There are actually two film versions. One is an anthology called Dead of Night from the 30s, and it's not the Dan Curtis version. Okay, remember, it's a portmanteau, but from the 1930s called Dead of Night. And then
portmanteau.
Yeah, that too.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
And the other is, I think, there's an early 60s called Devil Doll, which is about a ventriloquist dummy and it's been riffed by Mystery Science Theater, but it's about a dummy that gets up and walks. So it's not, Scarface takes its inspiration from that, but it's not like the Avengers invented it. They had precedents.
Right. It's been done before. And it's also one of those, those creepy things that's used. Yeah, you're right. It had been done before to great success. So why not do it again? The thing that this reminds me of, and I think the movie came out a little after this too, but the whole vibe of this episode reminds me of Deadlier Than the Male. That film that was sort of a pseudo spy film that came out, I think, around this time, maybe a year later. But yeah, it's all about a bunch of lethal women. It's called Deadly.
Well, well, the lethal women too. They sort of could be getting from Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. I mean, that's
the milieu of the women is different, but yeah, the basic idea is the same. These women are taking control, and get the hell out of my way, and we're gonna kill you, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a basic idea. It's true.
It's a fun episode. I really enjoy the performance of the women. The choreography is just fun. I mean, just drop out fun. It's straight for the whole Diana Rigg hulking up a straight out wrestling.
Yeah, that was fun.
It's just fun. My whole favorite sequence is them actually investigating this whole thing and trying to uncover it. It was really well laid out. They really did a good job of giving you that reveal late and having that twist ready. It's shocking.
Yes, it is. But you're right. The discovery segments with them being their urbane selves, and being their witty selves, is always fun to watch. I appreciated that in this episode.
Yeah, and I think it also helps that a lot of television around this time had a very definite structure, because usually you would have your teaser, your 4 acts of like 10 to 15 minutes apiece, and then your tag.
Yeah.
And there's really, you really have to make that time count. So you have to be really precise, and you can, like there are a lot of bad 70s detective shows where it's somebody rushes in with, here's the vital clue, I've solved the mystery.
Right.
And here, because you're dealing with writers who are, just like in America, they're going from series to series to write. They kind of know, okay, I've got to do this, I've got to plug this in, I got to make this work, and they make it work.
Yes, they use the system, the structure, but they use it to well advantage. I think probably the most deliberate of those series that would let the audience in on that structure was probably Quinn Martin Productions, because they used to say Act 1, Act 2, and do this whole thing. But you're right, that's the kind of tropic system that was used in a lot of television shows, particularly hour-long television shows.
Yeah, and even using Quinn Martin as an example, he did basically the same show. A guy who's on the run, meeting other people, and there's some enemy behind him, because you've got the fugitive, the invaders. I'm sure there's a couple of others. I think Quinn Martin actually took on Dan Curtis in a golf game on Battle of the Network Stars. Dan missed a shot.
That's wonderful.
And he and Martin just look it up on YouTube, kids. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and the other trope that Quinn Martin used, besides the man on the run, was the detective thing. He got into doing, what was it? He did he did Cannon and Barnaby Jones later on. So he just kind of adapted that whole thing, and then the villain would be the one on the run. So
yeah. Is there anything you guys want to add about this episode before we go?
It's classic black and white.
I'm glad William Conrad wasn't in it.
Yes, he would have taken up the entire screen in those days.
I'm not going to say that, but I will here.
Yes. I also like the feeling
of in trouble.
What's that?
I said, the first time I entered into this world with Penny Dreadful, I was not on her show more than 30 seconds before I said something she had to censor. Going out, it might have been a record. That was my introduction to things, because Wallace made a rare appearance.
Yeah.
And I said, listen, and it's what I always say. I say, I am the puppet. Wallace is the hand. I said, but it's a marionette. It's not like it's a finger puppet. I think she cut the finger puppet part, which is fun to say, puppet part.
Yes.
But Jewel, you're a forward-thinking man. We've said it here and now. I look like Jonathan Harris here.
No. What do you got? Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'd say the black and white thing also with the street scenes and the interiors and stuff like that just reeks of Britain in the 60s. It's so much fun to watch the little cars going down the narrow streets and, in front of the row houses and all that sort of stuff.
What do you guys do on Thursday?
Well, whatever you want to do, Big Papa.
Yeah.
Sure. Let's cover a movie. Let's cover The Rocketeer.
Ooh, okay.
Ooh.
Wow, that's one I hadn't thought about in a while.
Yeah. That's a great.
The Who?
The Rock Who? That's a great early 90s piece. That's also in that time period style, much the same way as, in that way, at least, as The Shadow is and Phantom. So that's kind of cool.
I got to see The Rocketeer at the drive-in. My mother took me. It was fun. That's a fun movie to see at the drive-in.
Yep.
Sitting on the ground.
It is.
Memories.
And I think it's one of the first movies that Timothy Dalton does after he's done with Bond, and he plays a villain in it. Immediately goes for the villain role.
Matt Helm.
Link to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page. Link to Patrick McCray's Dark Shadows Day book of Val's going to be a scripture box. Link to Alan Gillen's YouTube channel. Colin Sport After Dark is going to be a scripture box. So you guys have a safe night. Take care.
Good night, all.